How's it going, everyone? Today we've got a Jaguar XF. So yeah, let's get into it. What are the specs of this vehicle?
Yeah, so this is a Jaguar XF, like you said. It is a V6 diesel, 2.7 litres, producing 201 horsepower. It has got a 6-speed automatic gearbox, which drives the rear wheels. So this is the second Jag we've had on the channel. Hopefully this one doesn't give us the same issue as the first. If you don't know what we're talking about, check the video.
You think the what? I think the fan belt might have come off. Yeah, link in description if you want to know more information about what happened with the last Jaguar. But the problem did get sorted.
Yes, it got sorted like a couple of days later.
What is this car meant to compete with?
So this car was meant to compete with your Audi, your Mercedes, BMW, that kind of, like the E-Class, the 3 Series or 5 Series. It's kind of like that awkward mix in between where it's not quite as big as a 5 Series, but it's also not quite as small as like a 3 Series. So it's a bit of a middle ground there. But yeah, Jag made these here. Not as big as Jaguar XJs, which would be like an S-Class or a 7 Series or an Audi A8 kind of comparison. This is somewhere in between the other cars. But I mean, it's a fantastic car. You only got it in this here. You only got the sedan. You never got a Avant or anything like that there. Or a State, if some people call them that. But I mean, fantastic car. It's very, very reliable, good on fuel, and I think it's aged pretty well. Connor is actually quite a large fan of the interior of this car. Why is that?
Because I love Jaguars, but no, main thing is I find it quite luxurious and sort of elegant at the same time. I like the wood, I do like the chrome, I like how the wee switch gearbox is quite nice and small. It's not like taking up the whole center console. You've still got plenty of room for cup holders.
It's quite refined.
But yes, quite nice and refined, and leather as well. Like,
it's a very soft leather, actually, talking about that. Yeah, it's very, very comfortable.
Nice and squidgy. And what other engines could you have got with this car?
Oh, you could get it in a multitude of engines. I know you can get the V8, naturally aspirated, and then you could also get the V8 supercharged, which I think is around 500 horsepower. So yeah, there's a lot of different options. You also had other diesels as well. This is obviously the 2.7 diesel, producing 201 horsepower, so it goes pretty well, very, very well for what it is. It's obviously diesel, but I mean, if you wanted a much faster version, you could have got a supercharged V8, which, I mean, just sounds good. See, what I quite like about this Jag specifically is a lot of cars, you get a lot of buttons that you don't necessarily ever want to use or need. This here is the first kind of generation where you started getting like a bit of like a mix between touchscreen and your buttons, conventional buttons. So the benefit of that is you can have your basic buttons, so your gear selector, your engine start button, air conditioning, radio, those buttons, they're all right and easy everywhere you need. And then you can have your more obscure things, such as like your lighting control, your navigation or vehicle settings, tucked away on the sat nav, which just makes it a little more streamlined. You don't have as much clutter, if you know what I mean, which is pretty good. So I quite like that.
What would be the history on this car?
To be honest, I don't really know too much about the history of the car. This car isn't ours, it's been lent to us. But I know that this car's been to Dublin, and the best fuel consumption they managed to get is about 78 to 80 miles to the gallon. So I mean, it shows you this car is only supposed to get, I think it's 47.8 to the gallon on like a motorway, but they managed to get up to just shy of 80 miles per gallon. So I mean, that was on a long trip. I mean, 100 and something miles. So I mean, this car is definitely the one to get if you want good fuel consumption. Yep. It's been reliable. I don't think they've ever had any issues with it.
But just talking about Jaguars in general, most Jaguars have very comfortable suspension, and this is no different. Nice, comfortable, nice and wafty, in a good way,
It's elegant. It's very elegant, and it's very well refined. And driving it's a completely different kind of car to your standard kind of like BMW. It's a lot more grandfather-like. You're got a softer suspension, more comfortable. It's more wafty than it is sporty. But this is also the V6 diesel. This isn't supposed to be the most sporty car in the world, but having like pretty low profile tires, you can go around corners pretty quickly, and it's got pretty well set up. You don't have electronically dampened suspension like you did in the other Jag we reviewed, but then again, this is not supposed to be a performance car. It's supposed to be a very, very practical, efficient, comfortable daily car for someone of higher stature.
Absolutely. This video has been sponsored by SureSleep. SureSleep is a local Northern Irish bed retailer, and if you use the code GearShiftCrew, you get an extra £10 off your next purchase. So enjoy the rest of your video. And since it is a Jaguar, how have they found reliability?
Like I said, it's been pretty good. They've not really had any issues. I know the one issue they did have was, I think it was the fuel pump was a bit of an issue. It's wasn't delivering the fuel pressure. So whenever you had your foot flat on the accelerator for a good bit of like, you know, big pull, it was going into limp mode, but I think that's been solved. But I think Jags, to be honest with you, you can't really go too wrong with them. I know this generation you had a lot of issues engines wise, specifically the 2.7s. A lot of the cars were very troublesome. But I mean, that's the joys of cars. You know, some generations of cars will have their moments, to put it nicely.
What would be some of the quirks of this vehicle?
Okay, so the quirks of this car here is, well, first of all, it has quite an interesting interior in my opinion. When you turn the air conditioning system off, all the vents, they close over, they kind of like rotate and close, and obviously when you turn it on, they open up again. You've also got no like lever for the glove box. What you have instead is a button that's kind of like inset into the wood, so you just tap it there. It's like a capacitive button, it just feels your finger or whatever it is. One apparently very interesting factor on these cars here, there was a huge amount of customization when you got it brand new. So there's very, very few that are very similar. So one thing that's been told is if you want, let's say, to get a new panel out of an interior piece, it could be a completely different shade of wood. It could be completely not even have that option. So there's a whole load of variants, and if you wanted to get one of these here, you're probably not going to get one this exact spec without having, you know, to search quite decent. But personally, these weren't my favorite generation of Jaguars. I think the old Jags were cooler in my opinion. These are very, very nice, but I don't know, I kind of like that old, I don't know, mysterious Jag kind of vibe. I like the old XKs and XJs and S-types and stuff like that. But
you fan of the X-Type?
The X-Type, I'm not a huge fan of the X-Type, but what I do really like about them is the fact that they're pretty much forward, which is the reason why most people hate them. But you have reliability in the Ford, but you have like a upmarket Ford, if that makes sense. You got the Mondeo that looks better, it's just got a better feel around it. You got wood interior. It's just a better Ford. It's like a premium Ford. It's like a Lexus. It's like a Lexus Ford, if you know what I mean. It's not the Toyota, it's the Lexus. It's not the Mondeo, it's the X-Type. So one more quirk about the car, and that goes down to the options you were given when you obviously bought it brand new, was this car has Bluetooth that connects to your phone for phone calls, but the owner who originally bought it never expected to have Bluetooth audio. So you have Bluetooth to connect to your phone for making a phone call, but you can't actually listen to music off it, which is a really, really random choice. But I mean, in other ones, they'll have that spec. Maybe the guy went for having audio, but no phone calls. So there's a whole load of variations, like I say, with this here, and that's the interesting quirk of this car. You have Bluetooth, but you can't use it for listening to music.
Very strange.
Interesting. But you got loads of cup holders as well. And actually a rather interesting quirk as well is the gear selector pops out. When you turn it on, there's a little dial that pops up, and you can choose from park, reverse, neutral, drive, and then sport. But like sport, you've got to like do a little like movement on the dial to get it to go in, but it's pretty good. You've also got like the paddles on the steering wheel. You've got your volume, you've got your channel, and you've got your source and your cruise control settings all here at the touch of your fingertips. So you never have to go looking for it or to find anything. And with your front little gauge cluster, you've got your miles per hour, you've got your kilometers per hour, your RPM gauge, and again a small display. And obviously that display tells you your fuel consumption, what you're averaging, all that there. It tells you the time, you've got your gears, what gear you're in, your speed. It tells you all the information without having to have a million different gauges, like the E-Class, for example, or like an old BMW would have.
Being a practical car, how does this compare?
So compared to like the Audi, Mercedes, BMW of the time, this, in my opinion, is very, very good. It's, you know, we've actually done a comparison between the two cars, not on the channel, but just in real life. We have a Mercedes E-Class, very, very similar age and spec to this here. And this car has a lot more boot space. I know when we went to Dublin, we had to pack the stuff that didn't fit in the Merc into this year. So it's actually carrying more luggage and just random bits and bobs. So yeah, first of all is that there. Second of all, this specific spec, the 2.7 litre V6 diesel, is the exact same E270 as what we have. So it's 2.7 litre straight six Mercedes E-Class. This got nearly twice the fuel consumption. So I mean, there's that as well. So it's got twice the fuel consumption of what the Merc could, and it could store a lot more stuff in it. Yeah. So I mean, just looking at from those two important aspects, you know, there's not really any reason you go for the Merc over this Jag. You know, you got better fuel consumption, more storage space. I mean, it's got the same kind of features. You got cruise control. I mean, you don't have speed limiter in this year, like what you wouldn't have in the Merc. But I mean, very, very infrequently would you find yourself using speed limiting. You know, at least in my driving style and stuff. You know, but I mean, the Merc does also have panoramic roof, but that's just the way you spec it. Yeah. So what do you think of this car having been in a whole load of different cars? This is obviously not a performance car, but what do you think?
Well, I've already spoken about the interior. Love it. Big fan of the interior. I never actually mentioned, but the seats are quite nice and very comfortable. Nice squidgy leather. We've already spoken about that.
And they're electric. They're also electric as well. Don't forget about that.
And there's so from what you say, the steering's quite nice and light, so that means it's quite nice to drive. Automatic gearbox. You know, it's got most things. You've got then the great fuel consumption, and you know, this would be a perfect daily if I was just going up to work every day, didn't want to spend too much money on fuel, and wanted an automatic car with lots of room and the Jaguar badge on it. I would go for this one.
This is exactly what the owner actually does. The owner works, I think it's about 10 or 15 miles away from their house. So they drive up and down pretty much all motorway miles, and she says she gets great fuel consumption, so you can't really complain about that there.
Now it's time to rate the car. So, for Future Classic, it's unlikely to be a Future Classic because of the engine and the spec, so we've given this a 2. This is a very practical car. You've got good fuel economy, you've got a good, comfortable, luxurious interior, and because of those reasons, we've given it a 7. Now, Jaguars aren't known for their reliability, and because of that already existing stereotype, and this car's fuel pump had to be changed, we have given it a 4. Now, for fun, it's a similar situation for Future Classic. It's not the 5-litre supercharged V8, because it is a V6 diesel. We have actually had to mark it as a 4. Now, the total that has been left is 17 out of 40, which comes to 42.5%. Well, thank you guys so much for watching, everyone. Make sure you like, subscribe, follow our vlog channel, link in the description, and yeah, we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. Did you know that a fun fact about the flappy paddle is I'm pretty sure Top Gear quoted that phrase, and now everyone calls it that, flappy paddle. I think because Jeremy Clarkson said it, I think with the Ferrari Enzo, he said you got this, or no, it was some like Aston Martin, he said, oh, I don't like this flappy paddle thing, and now everyone calls it a flappy paddle gearbox.
Well, look, everyone quotes a lot of things from Top Gear, and I'm pretty happy about having things to quote, you know.
The Baby Jesus.
Childhood TV program. That was fantastic.
The Baby Jesus.
The Baby Jesus.
The Baby Jesus.